adjustments, so we didn't have to vary our offense very much. We had a number of returning starters and obviously some key players in positions that we didn't want to have to learn new terminology, and so he was a great fit for us.
Mike, take away the X's and the O's, and there's no doubt Dana brought last year a little different attitude, a little swagger, and the offense reflected that. How much was this an attitude hire that Todd kind of has that edge to him a little bit as well?
Well, I think the first thing is that Todd Monken's not Dana Holgorsen, and vice versa. Todd's a smart football coach. Dana did great things for us. He brought in a style of attack that we wanted, or I guess I wanted, and it worked out well for us. And Todd's been around, and he's very personable. The players will like him. They'll like his attitude and the approach of being on the attack, and I think it's just a great fit. But the first criteria is a smart football coach that understands the game and can relate well with the players, and all three of these guys fit that.
I'm glad that wasn't mine.
Yeah.
You've been a play caller, and you do want a certain attitude in that guy calling plays. You want that aggressive. You want a guy that wants to be on the attack, right?
Well, we want to stay with Oklahoma State's offense, and we're going to play the same way we did last year. And I don't think that anybody would argue that the fewer moving parts that needed to be adjusted would be smarter on our part as a coaching staff. And so that's how we ended up with these decisions.
With Todd coming in, though, I guess it's safe to say that there will at least be some tweaks in what you guys do next year as opposed to what you did last season?
Right. We want Todd's input and Kasey's input and Jamal's input in our offense, Oklahoma State's offense. And we want them to keep most of it the same as last year, but there would have been tweaks either way, one way or the other, based on what we think that we could do to make improvements as we progress.
Mike, in the long term, would you like to find some sort of middle ground offensively between what you used to do and what the type of offense that Dana brought here? I mean, in the long term, not next year. Would you like to maybe try to find a hybrid, something in the middle over the long haul?
Well, I think we need to find what's best for the season that's next, for 2011. And it may not look the same as 10, it may be different in 12 and 13. But the system's in place, and we'll adjust it a little bit, just like we have from when Larry was here and he left. We made adjustments as we progressed to try to make the offense the best to fit the personnel that we have for that season.
How would you describe your working relationship with Monken and he was at OSU previously?
Well, obviously we were both assistants for Coach Miles, and had a good relationship. I was with quarterbacks and he was with receivers, so we worked together a lot, and have kept in touch when he went to LSU and then over to Jacksonville. And again, I go back to the thing that I think is important in hiring coaches is that you hire smart football coaches and guys that are willing to buy in and be loyal, and he'll certainly do that. And he can make adjustments to whatever we need to, and then he'll have input on what he thinks is best. Because ultimately he's going to be the offensive coordinator, working with Coach Wick and Leach and the other guys, and they'll be responsible for the success we have on offense. But then ultimately the most important thing is to find ways to win the game.
Two of the three coaches you hired have NFL experience. How much do you like that?
Well, I think that it's good to have guys that have seen it from both sides. Some of the best coaches out there are high school coaches. It's always humbling when you go out to high school and you see guys that are coaching offense, coaching defense, cutting the grass, cleaning uniforms, and those guys that are experienced and they're really good. So I think there's good coaches at all levels, and he's got some knowledge and some information that he's been able to obtain coaching at that level that'll be beneficial for our players.
Coach Monken's going to come in and learn what you did last year, basically. So who's going to be teaching him?
Well, the disadvantage of a new coach coming here is you're alone and there's no family. The advantage is you got all night to step here and watch tape and learn. And so those three guys, along with our other coaches that are currently on our staff, will train him. And it'll take some time for him to learn the system, but once he learns it, then he ought to be able to put his twist on it and move forward from that point.
So Mike, will you guys kind of try to keep the same terminology that you guys used last year and have Todd learn that, or will he bring in the terminology that he's used to using and your guys learn that?
We want to keep what we have intact for the most part. There'll be some changes. There's changes every year. And I go back to the 2 years that I was doing it, we changed even though the offensive staff stayed intact. And there'll be some small changes, but for the most part, we wanted to keep the system in place for the players.
Todd acknowledged to John Helsley in an interview that he talked with Brandon last week. Was that something where you wanted to bring those two guys together and wanted to see what kind of, how they reacted, or was that just, after he was hired, you said, hey, you need to lead our quarterback?
No, that took place prior to us hiring him as the coordinator. I thought it was important that Brandon had a comfortable relationship with the offensive coordinator, because he's not your typical college quarterback. He's 27 years old, and it's almost like dealing with an NFL player. So I thought it was important that the coaches that we thought could potentially be the offense coordinator here, that Brandon have a conversation with them and that he feels comfortable with them, and then to move forward out of respect for what he's been able to accomplish here and what he's done for us. And he passed up on coming out early to go play in the NFL. So I think there's some give and take there as a coach, and I just felt like it was important for him to communicate with the guy that we felt like would be our next coach.
Is that the only guy you set him up with? Is Todd the only one that...
Yes, because things went well with Todd, and I thought it was going to work out. So, I don't know, maybe a week or so before we hired him, or 5 or 6 days, I had them talk. And then I visited with Todd about it, and I visited with Brandon about it. And both parties felt really comfortable, and so that allowed me to move forward. In a hiring process, I've not been big on having 3 or 4 guys strung along at one time. I always went to one guy, and then if it didn't work, then I went to the next guy before I got too deep into the potential of one guy being a coach. So if it wouldn't have worked out, then and we'd have had another potential coach, then I would have had gotten them in conversation.
I asked you about 2 of the coaches having NFL experience. The other one, very interesting, comes from an academy, from the Air Force Academy. And I know you've always, since you visited Army as a recruit yourself, you've always kind of had a fascination with the academy football.
Well, those guys are special. The guys that can go to an academy and graduate and play football and endure what all they go through. When information came to us about Jamel, I became infatuated with it just because of that. And then the more I looked into it, the more people I called. I thought, shoot, this guy's a great hire for us. And there's been people, I've run into a couple people and say, why would you bring a guy from Air Force in here in this style of offense? One thing is Air Force is not completely option. They're running, in fact, their #1 run last year was the outside zone. And Jamel is a smart football coach. And guys that understand the game can adapt. And he's been really good with his players. He's structured, he's disciplined, he understands loyalty, hard work, and effort. And those are all things that are important. And I think he can continue to instill toughness in our young running backs.
What exactly will Coach Singleton be doing in the summer?
Coaching running backs and recruiting in the state of Texas. And he'll be responsible for his players, the running backs, developing those guys and bringing them along, make sure they're in class and all those issues.
As far as play calling, is that something you knew you wouldn't go back to after the season, or did it kind of come with the hiring that you wouldn't take it back over?
Well, I had mentioned that I wasn't going to say there was a 100% chance I wouldn't do it, but I said very, very slim. And I'd come across several guys that were very capable of doing it, that I was comfortable with, and I certainly don't want to take it back on.
Todd hasn't done that, at least since Eastern Michigan, I guess.
Right.
Is that a concern to you? You mentioned the thing you like best about Dana, somebody come in and just call plays.
When we brought Dana in, he was the best fit at that time. Todd's the best fit for us at this time. And again, it's not ever going to be perfect, but I've been around Todd long enough, been with him in meetings. had a working relationship with him, and have a good feel for his understanding of the game and his ability to call plays. Our system is very simple. He'll have great input from the other coaches in the offensive room. The majority of that work will be done prior to the game, and then it'll just be a matter of him getting a feel for what we do on offense and making those calls.
Are there any plans to bring in any type of consultant, Mike Leach?
No, I don't know where that came from, Brandon.
I don't know where it came from.
Mike and I have had conversations throughout the year and off and on, and one, I like Mike and enjoy talking to him, and have tried to gather information about this offense from him in those conversations. But there hadn't been any time that we've talked about a consultation with him coming in here. I don't know where that came from.
Mike, it can't be pure coincidence that Justin Bieber has you as ringtone and you have him as your ringtone.
Well, I changed mine last night. I figured if he was going to use my ringtone, then I should certainly use his ringtone.
Are you a Bieber fan?
You know what?
Are you a Bieber fan?
Well, I am now.
Would you consider inviting him to a game, Coach?
And buying a suite.
You buy one for him, or he just buy one?
Well, no, I'd prefer that he buy one. I would prefer that he come and sing and perform a concert here and buy a suite. We still have some available.
Everybody good?
Coach, what are spring drills going to look like? You're going to have to get everybody up to speed, is that?
Same as last year. There won't be much change in what we've done. And again, I'll say this and kind of in conclusion that these guys are good, smart football coaches. We feel like we have a good understanding of the system, the players, maybe more so than the coaches at times. Coach Wickline and Leach are here, and we'll get the other coaches up to par, and these guys will be able to stay here at night and work and get caught up and continue to run this thing. The most important thing, or the most important part of this is the players. They're way more important than the coaches. And so we need to keep them intact and keep them moving in the right direction. And we have good leadership. We're fortunate we've got enough mature players that are returning that we've got some work to do the next 3 weeks to get ready for spring ball. But once we get started, I would certainly expect things to move very smoothly.